Are you ready to be unleashed and unstoppable?
Are you ready to experience a breakthrough and step into your next level of leadership?
Living a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms, unapologetically.
This podcast is for discovering how to play big, how to be unleashed and unstoppable.
Through wiring inner success at the source as you step into your full potential as a wildly ambitious leader.
We are
Lianne Carter and
Carol Register. We are certified Master Neurocoaches and the founders of Unleashed and Unstoppable You.
We're best known for being confidence-boosting, neurohacking, productivity, and wealth experts.
And for high-achieving leaders, visionaries, and entrepreneurs.
Now let's be unleashed and unstoppable.
Hey, how are you, leaders? We are here to bring you some great information, aren't we? And it's really, in the title, we have strategies for manifesting. And I just want to lean into that for a minute because it's really important that we define things. We are neurocoaches. We use a neuroscience-based process. However, for those of you who love manifesting and the law of attraction, what we're finding out in science, which is super cool, is that there is tremendous crossover, especially when we're looking at things like quantum physics and energy fields, and we literally are attracting things to ourselves all the time because we're creating our reality. And we're all about helping you to understand the power that you have. You have tremendous power. And it's kind of been an exciting journey for me. And I know for you too, Lianne, to uncover this amazing power that we have to create our realities. And it's well documented. It's well proven. We've had amazing results and our clients have, and we want to bring this to you. So we're here today to really talk to you about abundance and the opposite, scarcity. And I can tell you from my personal journey, that was a big part of it, that I had a pretty reasonable amount of wealth. I would have been classified wealthy in the world. We can debate over, was I upper middle class? Was I extremely wealthy? What? Doesn't matter. What I was living from scarcity. And so this is one of the things that we want to lean into, because if you are wanting to increase your abundance in your life, it's first of all, not just about finances. It's about your whole life. And money is just a magnifier of who you already are. So all it's going to do, if you're not happy in the present, if you're not operating from abundant in the present, and we're going to talk about the presence, then it's really important that you understand what is possible then when you get the money. Then you get the money. If you're operating in the scarcity, you continue that way because that's what your brain knows. That's what's familiar to your brain. That's what it sees, and it protects those patterns. So we're excited to bring this to you.
And I think it's important to highlight too, right, Carol, that this idea of like operating from scarcity shows up in multiple areas of our lives, right? So oftentimes we do feel it in money. And on the other side of that, there's the time, right? A lot of times with the time piece and this pressure, right? Create this pressure. And like when it goes back to what we always talk about, right? The decisions that we make impact the actions we take, the results we create. So, and those decisions are impacted by our belief system. So when we believe that we lack money, we lack time, we lack resources, when we are in this moment of lack, this then is going to impact the decisions we make, actions we take, results we create. And so being able to shift from this operating from the lack, operating from the scarcity, then tremendously impacts the decisions that you take and the results you create and the leadership and the leader that you are and how you lead your team and you lead change and you lead and create your vision. And it's really fascinating because I know as we're working with clients, we often will see that, right? When we see some of the the thoughts that they're experiencing, the beliefs they're experiencing, some of the resistance they're experiencing, where their brain's keeping them safe, I would find it's really fascinating to see how it goes back to this way of operating from the lack, from the scarcity. And I know we are going to talk a bit about presence. And so I think I just for those listening today is just to get maybe just to pause for a second, just ask for them to ask themselves, where do I operate from this lack? Where do I operate from scarcity? Where do I feel this pressure? Where do I feel that there's just not enough of? And
Yeah.
just become aware of where that is showing up for you.
Yeah.
When we are focusing always on the lack, right, then we create more
Yeah.
lack, as you were saying earlier. And so
Yeah.
just, I think having that awareness piece, because I don't think we realize like to the extent that sometimes we're operating from that scarcity. And so just being able
Yeah.
to acknowledge that and realize that and have that aha moment of like, oh, wow, this is really showing up for me in multiple areas. So then you
Yeah.
can lean into what we're speaking in today and then look at having that shift and looking at things a little bit
Yeah.
differently, the transition and looking at the abundance and manifesting, prosperity and unleashing abundance in
Yeah.
your life.
I love that. I love, it's important to what you said about scarcity of time. It can be scarcity in your health. It can be a
Mm-hmm.
lack of abundance in your relationships. It can be in your creativity. It can be in your education, in your vision. And that's really the essence of what happens when we're operating by all of these limiting beliefs is we're operating in a state that is going to keep us from the abundance of our visions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important to address, because what does abundance look like all the way across the board? And if you think about it, we right now, if you just pause, we are breathing in and out oxygen without any awareness, without any conscious, mindful decision making, under normal circumstances. And yet we're doing it. That's the subconscious part of our brain operating right now. It's at work, and oxygen is free. It's readily available. It's everywhere. We don't even consider it. It's in abundance. And we have things around us like that all the
Mm-hmm.
time. And yet we get these limits that tell us no, and they go back to our childhoods typically, but no, I can't do that. There's not enough of that. I can't afford that. And so I think it's super important to understand it doesn't matter where you're at on the financial scale, because I know, Alex, you and I work with a lot of really high ticket clients. And what's important is, just like I was, you can still be blocking yourself and preventing yourself from receiving, because you're making decisions from a basis of not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fear basis. It's a lack basis. Like you said, there's a lot of names for it. And I like what you said about us each asking ourselves the questions, because the quality of your life is dependent on the quality of your questions. And so stop and ask yourself, am I operating from faith or fear? Am I operating from abundance or scarcity? What do I want? Can I have it? And if anything that comes up for you says you can't have it, ding, 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 that's where the awareness kicks
Yeah.
in. Capture it, write that down. Don't let that thought go. And this is such an important point, because what we focus on grows. Purpose is not to focus. And I really love speaking into this. Purpose is not to focus on the limiting belief. It's already in operation. It's already in action. Just like your heart's beating right now. You're not thinking about your heart beating until I bring it up, right? Because it's in your subconscious mind. You're not conscious about it. We make very few active decisions from our conscious minds.
Mm-hmm.
The unconscious is what drives the ship, right? And so when you stop and consider that these beliefs are already in operation, all we're doing by having an awareness is we're bringing them from the subconscious mind into the conscious mind. When we bring them into the conscious mind, this is where we can actively neutralize and erase them. And we have a whole process for you to be able to jump in with us and do this work.
Well, and I like the idea of always like it's the interruption, right? Because in your subconscious, you have these patterns, right? And these patterns have served you and you've operated up until now with those patterns. And so the awareness piece allows it, as Carol's saying, going from the subconscious to the conscious, and you're interrupting the thought pattern, right? Now you're getting curious, looking at, okay, where is scarcity showing up for me? And where do I feel that lack? And I love how you brought up, Carol, talking about relationships. Something else that came from me, like I know we have also a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to us, so often it can lead to talking about leads and clients, and those that are leading a team. It's having the right people on the team, right? And having the right support around you. Again, it's that question of more of the negative piece versus trusting that you do have, you have all the resources that you need access to, and you have the relationships. And part of sometimes what is in the gap is developing those relationships, developing that connection. And we get so caught up in such a busy world, right? There's a lot of movement. Things are changing constantly, which creates this feeling externally from us that we need to constantly be on the move. We need constant change, and we need to keep shifting and pivoting.
It brings up uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we feel, that there's so much to do, right? And I'm feeling behind, and versus being able to just be in the moments, acknowledging that you are exactly where you are meant to be. And something that I've been hearing a lot lately about, like, the divine timing piece, where I talk about like the whole manifestation piece, and it ties into leaning into it. There is a trust there, right?
Yeah.
And being in that moment. And I know, especially as leaders, because you are managing oftentimes like multiple different things, from time to finances, from team to your own priorities, that this feeling of there's not enough, right?
Yeah.
Can really put a pressure on you, the leader.
It's
And
pervasive. It
yeah,
really is. When you stop and just think about it, all the categories,
And so leaning into, and I think maybe this is a good moment to talk about that present piece, Carol, and leaning into how shifting from the scarcity when we acknowledge that. I mean, we've Carol and I have both been there. And so looking at, we like to talk about that next level of leadership, right? Like looking at a master level leadership. So how do you break free from that pressure? I always think about it as pressure, and release that, right? Well, I mean, that's us being unleashed in a stop hole, right? Like not feeling that, and crossing over into abundance, right? Crossing over into that.
Crossing over into abundance. I think that, we all have the power to do that. And that's what's so amazing. And it's relative to each of us because we get to determine our perspectives. A situation is neutral, and then we put a belief on it, right? And there are a couple of things you mentioned that I really want to lean into. One is a lot of times when we're, leading a team, when we are doing business, either as a corporate leader or as an entrepreneur, we have certain parameters, but a lot of things are unknown. That uncertainty factor that you were leaning into. And that's why I mentioned the faith versus fear. And, a lot of us say belief versus fear, but the belief is really not seeing it yet. And this is one of the reasons that we lean powerfully into painting a clear picture for your mind. with vision, because your brain does not know the difference between the imagined and reality. And so here's this, what we would think of as our reality that we can't see yet. But when we paint that active picture for our brains, that's where our brain sees it. Our brain goes to work as if it's already occurring. And these are really important things. And that ties in directly to being present. I was on a call the other day with an ex-pro baseball player, very well-known motivational speaker named Rex Crane. And he was telling a story about his success, some important and powerful things that he was doing. But he actually was falling into depression. And he had to look back and figure out why. One of the things that he was doing was he was with the prime minister of Israel at the time, and they were going on a very incredible private jet to Princess Diana's funeral. And he said, I was always in my mind on to the next thing. I can't really be in this moment right now because there's the next thing ahead and the next thing. And that ties into our abundance and our happiness, because when you have wealth and you're operating in scarcity, or wherever you are and you're operating in scarcity on the financial journey in particular, you are always thinking about, I can't be in the present moment. I can't have enough. I can't, be satisfied with what I have right now. And the truth is, we don't know our time here on earth. And so it's really important to be able to come and lean into the present. And he was sharing that when he did that, what it unleashed for him, and it released the depression. And, it was something where, okay, I'm breathing. I am, maybe a little hungry, but I've got enough to eat and I have a place to live. And if any of you are not in that situation, please know that we're sending out all of our love to you, and you can receive the support that you need. And there are ways to do that. And that's not really what we're here for. That's not our capacity to help you with. What we are here to help you with is knowing that you have what you need in this moment. And here's the exciting part. Here's where this gets really cool. It's because if again, just repeating, if you aren't able to be present and enjoy the moment, then you can have all the material things in the world, even great relationship, even, whatever you think your biggest dreams are that you believe perhaps will bring you happiness. The truth is, you're going to be who you are. It's all going to be magnified with abundance. So you get to lean in and really live right now, presently in the moment. This will actually manifest abundance. This will create that reality. And I think that's just something so important to lean into.
And what has me thinking as you're speaking, Carol, because I mean, I'm so guilty of that, right? Like, I've shared before, like literally
we all are, yeah.
running to the top of the mountain to get a picture of the top of the mountain, of the view, and then running back down onto the next thing, onto the next thing, onto the next thing. And I know, I think it was a couple weeks ago, we were out for a little hike and I caught myself again. Like my brain was thinking about, the next thing and all the events that are coming up, and our brains, right, when we're used to that happening, it's going to happen, right? When we look at the finances of like all the finances and all the things to do, and right, the never ending to-do list. However, when you can acknowledge that and recognize that, and that's what I actually celebrated in that moment. I was like, oh man, like I'm not here right now. Like my body is here, but my brain isn't here. And being able to just kind of acknowledge that and snap out of it and just
pattern interrupt it.
Yeah. Pattern interrupt it, right? And be present. And I'll acknowledge, like, for me, it's been a muscle that I've got to really exercise because
Mhm.
it's very well, our automation, if we're very, very busy people
Yeah.
and we are so used to operating from doing and the doing, the doing, and I've got
Yeah.
all of these things to do, and your brain is just constantly in the next moment, right? On to the next
Yeah.
thing, on to the next thing. It is that pattern interrupt. And it is
Mhm.
about building a new muscle of being able to shift from the automatic of always thinking about all the other things and
Yeah.
being completely present. So I know for myself, when I catch myself there, I just say, be present and connected, be present
Yeah.
and connected. And it's real, it's been something that I've been training to do. I mean, another example, right? Our phones, right? Our phones are there, and maybe like I
Yeah.
myself, I have all the notifications turned off, but it's so easy,
Yeah.
right? Like you're
It
with
is.
somebody and
Yeah.
you just pick up your phone because
Yeah.
it's just there. And again, that's an automation, that's an interruption. And so
Yeah.
sometimes it requires like putting the phone away, setting that intention of from this time to this time, I'm going to have
Yeah.
very connected time with my loved ones. Because I know that a lot of times those are the ones that become impacted, right? When we're leading a
Yeah.
team, our team members, when we've got our family, it's our family, our children, our partners, they're the ones that experience that impact
Yeah.
because they can tell that you're not present. They can sense that you're not listening. They can
Mm.
sense that you're not really with them.
I
And
I've been called out on that, honestly,
mm,
numerous times in the past. I'm not that way now because, like you said, it's exercising a muscle. Well, I'll say I'm not perfect about it. I've taken messy action towards exercising that muscle. But yeah, hey, could you put your phone down? I want to be here with you for a minute. I have something to say. Oh, yeah, and that's an abundance mindset, right?
yeah.
Being there and being present. And I really love that what you're leaning into is so important in leadership. We want to be operating as leaders from an abundance mindset in all the ways, that there is more than enough. And I love the invitation to ask the questions. For me, with the principles of wealth, one of the principles wealth is called the rule of 40. Another one is pay yourself first. And I had a great question from a client saying, how do I take what I have and put the majority of it to work and live leaner? And as you may have heard on the episode, the amazing episode with Michael Unbroken, he says he has multiple companies, multiple millions of dollars, and is hungry. And I live that way quite often too. So how do you do that without being in a scarcity mindset?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
it is really training your brain, and very specifically, very intentionally. And I love what you say about exercising the muscle, training the muscle, because that's what we're doing. We're practicing. And when we practice over and over, this lays down a new neural network of abundance, and that becomes our default. you know that's the way, just like we're not thinking about breathing right now, although you are now because I mentioned it. But
well, and that leads into what's coming to mind, like a call to action for our audience, for the listener, to look at starting to transition from scarcity to abundance. And what's
yeah,
coming to mind is thinking, finding one area. So one area where you notice yourself really operating from this place of scarcity, and start to change that conversation, change what
yeah,
you're saying. So, for example, I think one really common is I don't have the money or something like that.
yeah,
Changing the conversation from the negative of I don't have to, I have what I need for the things that I need. Or
yeah.
I don't know, Carol, if you got some other suggestions. I know
Well,
I kind of
get
picked one. I don't know if that's the best one to go with, but just
I love
picking
that. Yeah.
something, right? To
Yeah,
get
getting
started with.
curious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get curious. And you mentioned it before earlier. Ask yourself the questions. Just lean in and, oh, okay. I when you catch the thought, I don't have enough, stop yourself, pause yourself and go, or do I? Start to ask
Yeah.
yourself the questions, or why don't I have enough? What's coming up for me? And taking that awareness, jotting down that awareness, not ignoring it. So again, you can move it from your subconscious mind into your conscious mind, where it can then be neutralized and erased. And you've got to stay with us here to find out more about that. We love sharing you all the information, and actually we'd share it freely right now, but it's better to start small, piece by piece. We want this to be childlike simple for you, so that you can build a foundation about who you really are and the reality that you can create for yourself. So we're looking forward to having you manifest even more, right, Alex, Lianne?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I think the power of what we've really leaned into today is that awareness piece, the acknowledgement piece, and really understand, I mean, that's the automatic, and being able to step into that abundance, step into that possibility, create that awareness, and then making those tiny shifts, right? Those tiny changes, changing the story, right? Neutralizing, erasing those beliefs, and just looking at like where, I guess an extension to sort of what I was saying earlier is like, where in your life could you be more present right now?
Yeah.
Where is there a place that you can create more presence? And just building that muscle alone to be more present, and looking and leading into the giving and generosity, right? Because it is, I mean, I think always like in terms of the relationship of time, right? Like a lot of times we're often from the scarcity because we feel like we don't have the time, because our time can be spent, right, doing all of these things. But leaning into that, even with your loved ones and your family, right? Like creating that 30 minutes where the phone is completely tucked away and you're just present with them, and acknowledge that as you're shifting, those around you, it might take them a while to shift as well, because they're also very used to probably the same challenges we've leaned in today about being so busy and just so much going on around us. And honestly, the automatic of picking up the phone is already in the subconscious, right? It's not until you start to become aware of it that it becomes in your
to
conscious
break the
like,
pattern.
break that pattern.
And being present again is about the abundance of the moment, the abundance of time. It's about leaning into who you really are, and that you do have enough right where you are, so that as the continued abundance flows in, you are able to receive it and live into it completely. So we're so excited to share this with you each and every week. And we went a little long today, so we're going to say ciao for now. And we look forward to bringing you even more next week. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Lianne Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review, and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.